Hello friends, Jerry Rosa here in the Rosa Stringworks workshop. This could easily be one of the coolest instruments that's ever come in the shop. Take a look at this. Can you see what we're looking at here? Now there's an old coffin case if I ever saw one. It's missing a good part of the case there. Look at the old latches here. Pretty cool, huh? Look at some of the hardware on the front. You know, this just looks like an old piece of furniture lock there, and this old metal handle, which you can barely get 2 fingers in, and then the latch up here too. Now you talk about an old capo. It says patented May 7th, 89, and I'm telling you for sure that wasn't 1989. Isn't that cool? Look at that thing. Never even knew that such a thing existed. Spring deal here with this goes under the neck there, and it can pivot a little bit there to fit your neck. It's really pretty well made. I think that's a pretty good capo right there, actually. Take a look and see what's inside here. Can you see the old... First of all, look at the cloth. It's pretty much deteriorated. It's pretty cool though. Old design. I don't know. I guess that's original material that was in there. I don't know if anybody might have tried to replace that later or what. You can see a seam across here which isn't lined up, which might indicate that it was done later. Not really sure about that. They put some padding in here. Here's a mud dauber's nest right here. We've got the pièce de résistance right here, or whatever that means. I have no clue what that means, but I do know that this is a pretty cool guitar. It's an old Washburn Parlor type guitar. Lots of issues on it. A crack here. Lots of binding missing, things like that. The back and the top and the sides are actually in pretty good shape, except for this spot right here, and it's a big crack, and you can see daylight through it from inside the sound hole, so it's a big crack. Plus the neck is loose. The neck joint is loose right here. You can wiggle it around pretty easily. As a matter of fact, I think, if I remember right, something popped off of here. Maybe the whole neck pops out, I don't know. But anyway, it's broke right across here at this fret. You can see it wiggle at that fret. That fret's been removed. It's really pretty loose. It's almost ready to come out. So we'll have to work on that too. This is quite a project. The guitar itself is not that terrible. It can be fixed pretty easily. Case is going to need some work though. We're ready to start on this beauty. It's 1870s, 80s roughly. Parlor guitar by Washburn. See if you can get the label in the picture there. I think I can get it mostly in there for you. Maybe you can see it. And in case you can't see it, the serial number is a 288. I believe that's a 493. It's a little hard to tell. If it's not a 493, it's a 193, but I think it's 4. Pretty cool looking instrument. Says the date on the label says 1893 to 1894, so that would mean that this has to be newer than the 80s, then 1880s, so this has to be 1890s, early 1900s then, because of the label. I never noticed that before. I was just going by what the customer had said. So this has to be in the 1890s to very early 1900s. But anyway, it's a very cool guitar regardless. It's got a lot of issues. Binding missing everywhere. There's just a lot of binding missing. This piece here is coming loose on the end. The bridge is definitely loose. You can even see under it there, I think. This neck is very loose. I can wiggle it I don't know how much of that you can see on camera, but it wiggles pretty good, and you can see it's pulled up there in the back. It's got a great big crack right here. So we've got our work cut out for us. Let's get started. This neck has been cut in two right here. You know, we might be able to just take the neck right off of it without having to take this extra piece off now that it's already been broke loose there. I'm just wondering how hard that neck would be to get out. It might be that there's still a part of this sitting over this tang. That may be the problem, because it feels totally loose. It feels like it should just come out of there. So I guess to be on the safe side, I'm going to go ahead and see if I can take this piece off. My only reservation is there's a hairline crack through it all the way down through here. Let's see what happens. I kind of think that this neck being this loose might have caused this break. I'm a little... Let me look inside just to make sure there's nothing in there that I haven't noticed in terms of any kind of other weird fasteners or something. No, nothing. It doesn't look like anything in there. I'm just assuming it's a regular dovetail, but it may not be. It may, you know, it may be something else. I'm going to try to look through this crack into a bright light. It appears to just be a standard dovetail as far as I can tell. Well, it popped out of there. What was locking it in place was pieces of the wood here had already broken off and were glued inside here. I don't know how much of that you can see, but there's pieces glued in there and pieces on this side. Those had obviously already broken off before this thing came here because this neck was just totally flopping loose like that. So that's what was locking it in there, though, keeping it from sliding right out. I'm not sure how I'm going to handle that, if I'm going to take those rest of those pieces out of there, or if I'm going to leave them in there and glue it back in place. I'm not sure. But there's a look at that non-adjustable truss rod. You can see how it is actually bent right there. I'm not sure why that would be bent. I would assume they bent it that way to make it line up, because apparently it didn't line up. Yeah, that's what I'd say, because that's what it looks like. But then again, I don't know for sure. Well, at least we got that out of the way. Now we can work on this body and clean up everything on the body and get it back up in real good shape. We'll work on this later down the road. But the neck itself is in very good shape, other than just how it attaches. There are only 3 pins with this guitar. None of the 3 match. All 3 are different. So I'm not going to worry about those. We'll have to put in new pins anyway. We're not even going to consider those part of the instrument or part of the repair. Some kind of a screw or mechanism underneath these 2 dots. I'm not sure what it is. It's really hard to tell. Go back and look at the tail block. You can see the glue has squeezed out through this crack here where someone's tried to repair it. Looks alright. It's hard to tell, really. See if these braces look okay. That one looks like it's okay. Really hard to tell again. Now that one looks okay as far as I can tell. Let's look at this close. We'll look at the very close brace here up inside, just inside the sound hole. See if we can, that's if we can get to it where we can see it. Yeah, it looks okay. Looks okay there too. Well, that's a good thing. The bridge plate itself, as far as I can tell, it looks okay too. Whatever these are, they're not magnetic. These are magnets, and obviously they are very strong neodymium magnets, and they don't stick to anything, so it's not steel. I've scratched it here, and it appears to be wood here. I don't I don't see, you know, like maybe there was a couple of mother of pearl dots there that have fallen out. That's my guess. But I don't see any fastener there. And as far as I can tell, it just looks like solid wood. I'm beginning to wonder if they just didn't put wooden pegs down through there. That's kind of what I'm thinking it is. I've looked inside with this too. I still can't tell what it is with this either. But if I was guessing at the moment, I think I'd just call them wooden pegs. I'm pretty sure that's what they are. So, with that in mind, and I'm 99% sure that's what they are. I'm pretty sure they're just wooden pegs. So I'm going to see if we can get this loose. I'm not going to worry about the pegs. I think they'll either pull out or lift out or something if I can get something under here. I'm going to just try it dry right now because it looks to be very loose. And I'm just going to see if anything starts to move or to pop up. We'll have to do the heat. I was trying to avoid that just because this is so skinny. Unfortunately, this saddle has been glued in the slot too. I've tried to pull it out and I can tell it's glued in there. Boy, nothing's simple in this. You know, if I could get the saddle out, I could lay a piece of aluminum or something on there that would fit, and then the iron would be higher off the top, because I don't want this to happen again, this discoloration. I'm pretty sure I can still fix this discoloration, but I don't want to create any more of it down here. It looks like it's already broke here in the middle according to that, so I think I'm just going to go ahead and pull it out and not worry about it. We'll just make a new bone saddle. I'm sure this one's probably not going to be right anyway. Sometimes you just got to cut your losses on things like this. I hate to cut this down smaller, narrower. I think I'm just going to use it like it is. I've had it on there about 5 seconds so far, so I'm just doing this live to show you how this occurs. You know, it's not an oversight or anything. It's just, there's just things that happen on these old instruments that you can't control. And, you know, you got to get it off of there somehow because it's a mess and it needs TLC. If I had a proper narrow iron for heating, that would be great. I don't have that. And it would take a long time to make something for just this one application. That's going to be very hot, even though it's only been on there a couple minutes. Just slide it off like that. And I'm going to heat up the knife to avoid heating this anymore and just see if we can get the knife to go under there and start. Got a 3.5 millimeter drill here. Just going to go down through that peg, and that definitely confirms it is a peg. By the way, this is quite a bit smaller than the peg. I'm just trying to drill down through the center of the peg in hopes that it'll break and come the rest of the way out. Okay, we got through the pegs at least. Might have to go to the next bigger drill to drill them out because I can see peg all the way around there. I was just wanting to see what would happen then if I poke this in here right around that peg. Maybe it would loosen it up enough. Yeah, it popped it off of that one. And maybe once you get one end up, maybe we could get this other end up. It's loose all the way from this end to right here now. This end is just brick tight. It is not wanting to come loose at all. You can just, it's a total different feel. Yeah, it's just not wanting to start under there even. Need some way just to heat this little section up, and that's what I really need. It's not gonna work very well, but I really need to heat just this section. Well, the air is on. I'm sorry about the noise, but here's a piece of aluminum. I think if I just concentrate the heat on there, it'll eventually transfer into this piece. That's my thought. I hope it works. I'm doing this live so you can see how long I'm holding it on here. Not very long, but that aluminum gets really hot really fast, so I have a feeling it won't take very long to get down into the wood. Trying to move the iron around so that the heat doesn't hit the top of the instrument so much in one place. Yeah, it's not very hot. About 120 degrees. That's Fahrenheit. Celsius, it's about 45 roughly. It's not very hot. So we're going to have to go some more. That aluminum's hot though, I can tell you that. Don't see anything going on back there yet. Let's see what the temperature is. 183. .183 it says. 160s. It's hard to tell. It doesn't seem to be registering real well. But I think I'm going to leave it warm like that. Heat up this knife and go in again and see if we can make any progress now. Pretty warm. We're getting under there a little bit now. Wow, it's really hard. Just about to get it, I think. It's about to come loose, I can tell. It's tight, but it's coming. It's basically loose now. It's just held on by that peg, and the peg is coming loose, I can tell. It looks like maybe there's a little tear out going on. Not too bad, really. A little bit of tear out on this one end, but I tell you, the way it was going, that was pretty much inevitable. It was so tight. We got her off of there anyway. Now we can move on. Well, the little white disaster here appears to be easily fixed. This is the semi-chrome polish, and watch how it just disappears here as you go over it, and it buffs it out. So thank goodness for that. Thanks to my buddy Randy for turning me on to this semi-chrome. It does seem to be like really good stuff, and especially on little catastrophes like this. You can see the difference there in the two sides. This one here had the same problem that this one has, and now it's completely gone. So it does amazing stuff. Amazing miracles here with the semi-chrome polish. It's almost completely gone. It needs one more application, I think. Ordinarily, I'd probably be doing this in a circular motion, but there's very little finish on this instrument, and I'm going with the grain specifically for that reason. Looks real good. Can't tell that anything even happened now. As a matter of fact, that part's much shinier than the rest of it. We'll do that to the whole instrument before we're done, but at least that gets rid of that look for now, and I don't have to look at it. Everything seems to be solid inside the body except for this big crack right here. So I guess we'll just go ahead and get started with that big crack and see if we can't fix that and move on from there. Because of the age of this guitar, and I would do this on newer instruments too, but as old as this is, I'm sure there's just dirt and dust in this crack. That air will blow down in there really good and blow that out. I wish this little piece here wasn't missing. Otherwise, I think we can close this up and make it look perfect. But right here, there is a little piece of wood missing, so maybe we can cut a splinter of wood and put it back in there something like that. Other than that, it's going to go back together and hardly be noticeable, I think. All right, this crack I'm opening up by hand as much as I can, although it doesn't really want to open up very much. I'm going to force glue into it with this nozzle. I'm using the pressure of the bottle to squeeze the glue into the crack. As I almost always do, I take a brush and paint it down in the crack, even more so. And then I work the crack back and forth like I'm doing here by hand, and that pumps the glue down in there really good. I could have watered this down first. I probably should have, but it's such a thin piece, I didn't really feel that was that big a deal. In there, I'm just going to look in here from the... Oh yeah, it's running out all over. You can see it all the way through. Yeah, perfect coverage there, no problem at all. I've already cleaned off the glue on the outside. As I tighten this up, you can see the glue squeezing out. It's going to squeeze out quite a bit here. I'm going to get these clamps adjusted up and get them on there. Up here in this open gap, I'm going to try to get most of the glue out of there because I may try to fill that with something. So I'm taking most of the glue back out of that crack. And we'll just see how it goes. I don't know if we can cut a sliver of wood to fit that or not. It's pretty tiny. I think I'm just going to move this clamp this way a little bit. I think it's fine where it's at, but move it there, spread these out a little bit right through here. On the inside, quite a bit of glue squeeze out, and I say quite a bit, not that much, it's not running down or anything, but we're going to go inside there with my hand. If it's a very tight squeeze again, I'm going to try to get in there and try to clean up the glue the best I can. We're very good shape there, with the exception of the little crack extra chip out right there where we may be able to fill that later. We'll let that set up and dry. Just going to clean this glue and wood off of the bridge. There's not that much. It looks like there's more there than there really is. I'm not cutting the bridge right now. I'm just very lightly scraping this. We're going to reserve putting this back on until we get the neck angle set and everything, because I want to make sure this bridge will work with the neck. And it's easier to make a new bridge than it would be to make a new neck, so we're going to work with the neck we got, get it back on there the best way we can, and then make sure that and try to make it work with this bridge. But if it doesn't, worst case, we could make a new bridge and just make it identical to this, and if we had to make it taller or whatever, we would do that. But I believe we got her cleaned off there pretty darn well. I think that'll work. So looks pretty good, pretty clean. And now we'll move on to the top here. I've got the bridge located very well right where it used to be because of the pins, I can tell, and the holes, and everything's lined up perfectly. I'm going to take the X-Acto knife and very carefully put a very fine line right around it so that I clean everything out inside of that line. I'm trying not to really cut, I'm just making a good mark that I'll be able to see when I get rid of everything here. Yeah, I can see that, but not real clear, I have to be honest. But anyway, we're going to clean up to that mark now and that's pretty good, pretty flat, pretty clean, but, you know, it'd be nice if it was even better, but I don't think we can do much better than what we've got right there. And everything lines up real good. There's a little scarring around it, unfortunately, but I think we can clean up most of that after we get the bridge glued back on it. So it's going to look pretty good when we're done. I'm going to set that aside for now. We'll just call that done for now. This crack is still open and it's still moving. It kind of looks like somebody opened it up and put a piece of wood in there, but it doesn't look like it took. Half tempted to try to replace that with another piece of wood, but then the other part of me says, no, dummy, just clean it out, glue it, clamp it back, and you'll be fine. And I kind of think that's the way to go. Just don't want to get the crack widened out here. I'm just trying to clean it out a little bit with the tip of my X-Acto knife. Kind of think we can do the same technique, just force the glue down in the crack with the bottle, then put a clamp across here, and I think it'll be fine. I'm not sure we can squeeze that together. It's just a hairline crack, but I don't know if we can even squeeze it that much. I can see the glue wiggling around in the crack really good when I do this. I think we've got good penetration. I've got leather all over this clamp here, so it's not touching the guitar anywhere. I, moved the clamp up high in order to just be squeezing on the top. And then this was a little unlevel, so I put two wedges in here to pull this one side of the top down, and you can see the glue has squeezed out a little bit, and I have cleaned it off a couple of times. So I think we're good. I'm just going to let that set real still for a while, a couple hours, go to lunch, whatever, and I think it's going to be fine. I've got a lot of faith in that tight bond holding that. I think it's time to address the binding on this guitar. There's a pretty good piece missing here. It also looks like there might be a little tiny black strip missing from the inside edge. So we might have to make something for that. And we've got a similar situation on the back. Now on this one it looks like it's just the plastic, there's nothing black in there, I don't think. So the problem is I've looked through all my binding. I don't have anything that is close in size that's going to work. The stuff that's close in size is either too thin or too not tall enough. So here's my option. This great big hunk of thick, kind of off-white binding, or it's I don't know what you call that, tan or something, but it matches pretty close to this. So I think maybe I'll just cut it down and make this work. That's my best option without having to order and wait on something. But back on a serious note, the I don't know what you call this decorative end piece is coming out and falling out. So I've stuck the X-Acto knife down in the slot here and opened it up. I don't want to take a chance on prying that out any further because I'm afraid it'll break. So with it in that location like that, this very thin CA glue, I'm pretty sure will go down in there and do a good job of getting into all the little nooks and crannies. So that's what I'm going to use because I think that's the best option in this particular case. And we should be able to then press this into place and hold it there while the glue sets up. Yeah, that looks good. Don't think that's going anywhere. And look at the other end of it. It looks like it might be loose. I think it could be, although it's even more difficult to get into. So just gonna hold it down like this and let it feed into the end grain there and into some of these little tiny cracks. Okay, we can turn our attention to the actual binding now. On this piece of binding, I was going to just square it off. That would be the easy thing to do. But then I noticed there's a pretty good chip out of it right here. And it's not that much further to go. And I'm tempted to just go ahead and cut it back to that chip. Though I don't think that chip shows up that much in different ways of looking at it. So I don't know if I should do that or not. It looks like it maybe something hit it right there at one time and chipped that little binding. I don't know. I think we'll just skip that and we'll just square it off because no point in creating additional issues. I think we got it. It was already squared off here because that must have been where the seam was. Alright, the biggest problem with this is knowing how thick and how big to make it. You know, this binding has been beveled off. It's wider at the bottom than it is at the top, so I have to figure out how wide is it at the bottom. And I'm not sure that we'll have a good measurement here, but okay, that says almost 70 thousandths of an inch, which would be just shy of 2 millimeters. And I've already marked this off for the longest piece here. So we'll cut this off in length, cut a couple of thin strips out of this, and take it to the thickness sander. We should be good to go. I was able to work down 2 pieces of this binding to where it's the right thickness at the bottom. It's way too thick at the top, so we're going to have to bevel it down like this has been beveled. It's a little bit stiff. I'm going to heat it just a little bit with the heat gun to make it bend a little bit better and conform a little better. Not that I could easily tape that, but I would prefer it to have its own natural bend before I put it in. I can feel it cutting, but I can barely even see the piece coming off. It's that small. I think that's it. I think that's it right there. It doesn't look like a perfect match, but it's not a bad match. This stuff's a little more yellow, this stuff's a little more tan, I'd say. And keep in mind I'm colorblind, but that's what I'd say. But, you know, you gotta work with what you gotta work with. And finding something the exact color is almost impossible no matter what you do. I'm just scraping the joint a little, checking it here a little bit with the straight edge just to make sure that it's clean, and we're ready. I'm alternating, going from top down and bottom up just to keep the plastic a little more stable, if you will. Okay, I think we'll just let that sit and rest a while. We'll come back and clean it up. It's going to take quite a bit of scraping in places. I have decided I'm just going to go ahead and glue this bridge back in place, and I'll make it work one way or the other with the neck angle. I'm just toothing it up a little bit with this tooth blade. It's very slick right now, so I just want it to have something where the glue has a little bit of hold. Again, I don't make it real rough, I just don't want it glass smooth. There's a very tall cross brace about right here. It won't let this clamp work well, so I'm going to have to put this caul in here to take up some of that distance. It's kind of a mess, and how I'm going to do that, I don't know. I'm going to have to put a piece of sticky tape on here or something to hold this. because it's not going to work very well without it. When it's done, you can tell it, but it's not very bad. There's the seam right there, and the other seam is right there. So yeah, it's a slightly different color. That's probably the worst part of it, but it's not bad. You can't feel it now. You can't, at all. You can't feel it, and that's one of the key things. When you can feel it, then you can tell it's been done. Right there's just the tiniest little bit right there. That's really good right there. Okay, we'll work on the top and try to get it the same way. It's looking really good. Now a little touch up to do. There you go. There's the piece we put in there. There's the seam right there and the seam right there. You can see on the top up here where there was a black little thin strip there that was missing. I filled it and then just dyed it black, and it matches pretty darn good. It's about as close as we're going to get. And now we can move on to the next thing, which might be trying to fill this little crack right here with a piece of rosewood. I'm going to see what we can do with that. I've got a piece of scrap rosewood right here. The odds of me getting something cut that's going to fit in there is pretty slim, but what the heck, it's worth a try. Okay, in this little tiny crack here, I've been cutting a splinter of rosewood, and believe it or not, it's actually starting to look like it might work. It's so tiny that you can't even really hold it to carve it, but I'm trying to carve it down even thinner without cutting my finger off. Let's see if I can't get that to stay in there somehow. Well, let's see what we can do with that. I don't know how to clamp that in there. I would prefer to use a wood glue on it, but I think it's fairly obvious I'm going to have to use a super glue. I'm going to try to bend this enough that it'll conform a little better without cracking it. Well, that looks like it might work. We're going to never really tried it like this before exactly, but we'll give it a shot, see what happens. The problem with something like this is holding it while the glue sets without getting your hands stuck to it at the same time. Well, the little end of it broke off that I had for that, but so we'll just have to make a new little end. I've got a brand new X-Acto blade here that I'm using to scrape this down to the surface, or at least I'm trying. Quite high in this area here. This feels like a shellac finish, I think. It might be an old oil varnish, but it feels more like shellac. And because of the way that it milked up on me when I tried to take that fretboard extension off, I'm pretty sure it is a shellac finish. So I'm going to put a little shellac over this area, and I think we can make it look pretty darn good. Very difficult to do and very tedious. It's pretty darn close. I wish I could get it closer. Start with a little piece of 220 and just see if I can try to hit just the wood. It's not going to be too likely. little super glue got out on it on the surface too, which didn't help anything. Okay, I think I got most of the super glue off on that side. Got a little amber shellac here. We'll see what we can do with that. I kind of think that'll work. I don't know for sure. Just have to give it a try and see what happens. Well, the piece of wood I put in there is a little lighter. May have to put a little stain on that piece. So that's, otherwise it's looking pretty good. I think I'll just, it dries really fast. I think I'll just take and stain that little piece of wood that I put in there. Stain it a little bit around it too, because there's, look, from the sanding and stuff. That looks pretty good. That shellac dries really fast. It's already kind of dry. That actually looks pretty darn good there. Now if the shellac will cooperate and let me get it on there one more time and do a little better job, I think we got it whipped. Yep. That looks pretty good there now. I mean, you might be able to tell it, but I think once we buff it out a little bit, polish it, I don't think you'll be able to tell it. Tell you what we got. We got a little bit of unevenness right here. Since this looks like that works so well, I think I'll sand this unevenness out and then we'll do the same thing right down in here. The rest of it's really even. Yeah, I think that looks really nice compared to where we were. Now you can't really even see that crack. It's really nice. We're back to the point of putting the neck back on the guitar now. As you can see, there's pieces of wood stuck in here that have broke off of the neck. Now those broke off before this thing ever came here because this neck was totally loose in there. I mean, it wasn't sort of loose, it was like this kind of loose. You know, so all that had already broken. This here had already broken off. It was obvious. So we just went with what we had and we just went ahead and pulled it out of there. And I was able to get it out around all those clumps of wood, but I would like to get those pieces of wood out of there now and put them back in to fill this tang back out if I can. That's not going to be easy, and I would like to get them out in one piece, which is definitely not going to be easy. I'm going to experiment a little bit and see what I can do to get them out of there. A viewer friend, Charles, sent me these scalpels, and very nice, and a bunch of extra blades, and I have been using them and using them more often. But my problem with the scalpels is that it has this extra big thick tang on here, and you can't get into tight places with that all the time. It works great when you're out in the open or cutting down through something like that. But in here, I need to get the flat blade against this side. So I'm going to try. I got a brand new X-Acto blade on this, and I'm going to see if I can saw this off. I don't think I can because I really think it's glued to it very, very tightly. Now, the piece came off of here. This would be at the top over here is where this would be. Any chance of getting it back in there? I don't think so. It's just crumbling up as we speak. Putting this straight edge on here, it's a good 1/8 inch, well, not quite that much, but almost an 1/8 inch off of the neck right here. So it's definitely got to go down. And sighting down it definitely has to go down. So all three things tell me this has got to go down. And therefore, we're going to take some off of this heel. We'll be taking it off of this heel to nothing. And it doesn't take very much. I mean, just a little bit here will move it a lot up here. So we're just going to take a little bit off and see what it looks like. I'm going to clean up some of this other junk that I see on here too. It's really difficult to do this. So what I do is give myself a visual reference, and truly I'm only going to take off 1/32 of an inch to nothing. Probably about 1 millimeter to nothing is about what it would amount to. Not even that much, actually, probably a 1/2 millimeter. Yeah, about 1 millimeter, I guess, to nothing. So what I do is take this sharp X-Acto knife and just put that little line in here so I can see it. Actually, this is not that straight, so it runs out right about in here. So I'm going to use that as my gauge for how much to cut off of here. This is very sharp chisel, so it cuts it pretty easy. Yeah, that looks pretty good. See how straight we got it. A little bit of a hump here. I need a little more from this corner. This has an ebony cap on it, which makes it a little harder to carve too. That ebony is really hard. Alright, we'll work on the other side and try to take off about the same amount. It's a little hard to cut this stuff here, especially on this tip end. That ebony is very hard. Let's just see what that looks like in the neck here and see angle-wise if we're doing anything. Well, it's not really touching, so it's not going to do much. There must be something holding it up. Well, there it is. It seems to be going in there now. Let me just check the angle and see what it looks like. Well, we moved it up a good amount. Not enough, I don't think. But we moved it up almost enough. We're going to have to work on a little bit, but I think the distance I have is still the right distance. I'm not quite down to it yet. I'm going to sharpen up the chisel just a little bit. It's pretty sharp, but you can always make them sharper, and that helps. Yeah, I got the chisel touched up a little bit, and we'll see what we can do now. Edge is staying straight, pretty good. I think we're getting pretty close now. You can see that it's not touching the top there now. And I would say it's clearing it by, maybe a 1/16 of an inch. And I think that's good enough. I'm going to look down it and see where we're at. Oh yeah. Yeah, when you look down it, and I don't know that you can see this perfectly, but when you look down it now, try to get it at an angle there, you can see that the neck just about disappears at the top of the guitar there, and that's just about right. When you like, in other words, you're looking down this plane, this should just about disappear, or just about be level. And that's pretty darn good. It's about as good as it gets. Now, the only thing that bothers me there is because of that angle, this has come up a little bit. And this metal is a little bit proud of here, which we could handle one of two ways. We could dish this out a little bit, which we don't have a lot there to dish out with. Or we could grind this off, and I think I'm going to choose to just grind this off. I've noticed a curious thing here. There looks to be like there's a nail right there, and I think it is a nail. I'm wondering if it'll, yeah, the magnet sticks to it, so it's definitely a nail. I guess they used that to line up the top whenever they put the top on the neck block there. I'm going to grind off a little bit of this end to make it flat. It's kind of rough anyway, so I'm just going to take it to the grinder, touch this up a little bit. I think I can actually see this tilting up, and I don't want to bend this. I just afraid we'll get into more trouble bending it than we would if we just grind a little bit of it off, and it won't take much. You can see now the metal's just about perfectly flush with the top there. Just ground it off a little bit. Might even need just a hair more back here. I can probably do that with a file. Doesn't need much. I don't like the fact that this joint is so loose. I really think I'm just going to go ahead and apply some very thin shims to this. I can see I can move it quite a bit. I can rock it. It moves to this side quite a bit. It doesn't move to that side really at all. So maybe I should just try applying a small shim on the treble side of the neck here, mostly because this is all busted off. I could build that back up. I just want to make sure it won't break in the future. I think I'll just go ahead and take a minute, cut this off square, rebuild it back out to the original dovetail, glue it back on there and build it back out to original dovetail. I don't think it's going to take that long, and it'll be a better product in the long run. You can see this is busted off up to about right here. What I'm going to do is, right where it's busted off there, I'm just going to try to saw a little tiny razor line straight down, like that. Then I'm just going to try to file this, or chisel this off flat to that line so that we have a good flat piece of wood to work with. Yeah, that just crumbled out of there, which is probably all the more reason why we should cut this out of here, because that wood's probably splintered till we get down to solid wood. Yep, I think we're getting there. Got a little bit of a bow to it still, so I'm trying to cut this really flat, and then I'm just going to insert a new piece of wood in there. I believe you can see there that we have that pretty flat now, and we'll do the same thing so you can see how unlevel it is here on this other side. It's quite a bit unlevel. So I'm just, since this side looks like it starts about here, I'll just go up a little higher here and cut this side a straight line. And then we'll do basically the same thing. We'll just bevel all the way up to that. It's a lot deeper down here, but just trying to, we'll just bevel it off till we get up to that line. Just a long straight bevel here if we can. Yeah, so now we can cut two little pieces and glue them in here and then recarve the dovetail. In an effort to fix this, I've got some mahogany, which appears to be the same kind of mahogany, and I'm just going to cut off a chunk of this to about the right length. Now that's longer than I need for both sides, so now I'll just split off a piece. Just a piece that I think is going to be big enough. Don't really need to be very big. And so we'll be able to glue that on there and glue this other one on the other side. And I'll cut them off to length a little closer before I glue them on there. That should work then, and then we can recarve the dovetail right back to where it should be. Got 2 blocks of wood cut to fit these. Going to put some glue on here. I think that'll work. We'll just let that sit and do its thing for an hour or two. So I'm carving off these large pieces that I put on here, In hindsight, I probably should have just went ahead and cut them down a little bit more, but it's really not, it only takes a second or two to shape them down. You can knock it off pretty fast. Yeah, that's probably going to be close enough for the initial fit up here to see how it fits. More than likely it's not going to go down in there very well. Well, it goes in there deeper than I thought it would. It just hits pretty close to fitting, and now you can see there's no play in it at all. It fits tight. So now we'll need to use my other methods, which would be the carbon paper and things like that, to see where the high spots are. Actually, it's almost going all the way. It's just a little bit. You can see a big dark line there and a dark line there. Probably once we carve them off, we're going to be about there. Understand, it seems like it's down, but yet it's still not touching on this one side for some reason. Let me look and see how crooked that looks. Yeah, it does look a little bit crooked, so that indicates to me that we got to take some off of this toe down here and the upper part on the other side. There we go. Yeah, I thought that did it. Maybe almost. Now it's getting a little loose though, so I don't know if I want to go much more than that. We're still just a fraction off of the top here on this side. Neck angle's not perfect. It's pretty close. Pretty close. Well, it's that critical time. We're putting the glue in the joint here. This one doesn't actually touch the very back, so there's no point in me putting glue back here much. Not going to worry about the fretboard extension right now. We'll put that on after we get this piece set. There we go. Looks like it's good. I think we're good there. Put a couple of clamps on this. You can see I've got clamps on both sides of the neck pushing it down in there, and then I also have a bar clamp. I've got a towel between the guitar and the bar clamp to keep the back from getting scratched. I have leather on both ends, and I have the bar clamp pulling on the heel of the neck, pulling that way obviously to keep it tight. This gives me the ability to check the neck angle and make sure that it's still good. And as you can see here in the corner, it's still clearing the top of the bridge by about, a 1/16 of an inch to an 1/8 of an inch. So we're real good there, I think. I think we're in very good shape. We're just going to let that set up and do its thing. Give it a couple hours, or maybe actually we'll probably give it longer than that. Well, off camera, I put this other fret in here, just leveled the frets in this area only. Look down at it, they look pretty good. I'm not going to worry about a fret job on this guitar at this time. It'd just be an extra expense if it doesn't need it, and to be honest, it really doesn't look like it needs it. So we'll just go with that for the moment. So it's looking pretty good. It's not perfect, but it's pretty darn good. I'm going to try to fill these two holes. I went through my supply of dots that I have, and I don't know if I've got anything that's the right size or not. I think we could go with that. So we'll put those in there. And if it needs a little bit of fill, we'll do that, and a little dye touch up, and it should make it work pretty good. Try to get them down in there as far as I can, because they're in a hollowed out spot like this, and so I'm going to have to, I don't know, sand them or something to try to cut that hollow into them. Might even try to do that before I glue them in. Boy, it's not ever simple, you know. Well, we've got this Wabash, what I'm calling a parlor guitar, all put back together. It's really turned out nice. I think all that binding's been fixed. The big crack that was around here has been fixed. You can't even hardly tell it now. Piece of wood that we put back in there, about right in there. I think you can see it if you turn it just right about in there. So anyway, it turned out really nice. We got the bridge back on it, fixed the little dots. All the binding that was missing has been fixed. You know, if you look real close, you can tell it, but doggone it, don't look real close. That's all I got to say about that. This thing was a lot of fun to work on. A neat little guitar. The neck's been reset, of course, and it plays real easy. The action's about 80 and 90 thousandths down here, if not a little bit lower. And the action's a tight 18 in this area here. So we'll try a little song on this guitar, one from the period. I would say this song was popular about the time this guitar was being made, or maybe this guitar was a couple years old by that time, I don't know. But around 1899, this was the #1 song for about 3 weeks, if I understand. So here we go. My wild Irish rose, the sweetest flower that grows. You may search everywhere, but none can compare for my wild Irish rose. My wild Irish rose, the dearest flower that grows. And someday for my sake, she may let me take the bloom from my wild Irish rose. Well, there you have it, an old song on an old guitar. Hope you enjoyed this. Well, here's what it all looks like, all put together. That little wonderful guitar, all back in good shape, put back into its original case. It's an old coffin case, as you saw me restore, and it fits in there just like a little glove. Doesn't hardly move at all, just a little bit of movement, but it fits in there really nice. And the case does close with the guitar in there, but the case doesn't line up real good with the top and the sides and all that. There's some cracks there, as you can see, but you know, we did the best we could with what we had to work with. Pretty cool outfit, if you ask me. Just thought I'd give one last look at this. I did go ahead and do a fret job and a fret leveling and recrowning, and I oiled the fretboard. You can see it almost looks like brand new again. I went ahead and oiled the top, the back, and the sides while I had it, and that just kind of rejuvenated everything. But the customer did think the price was reasonable, so he wanted to go ahead and get the fretboard done too. So just thought I'd give you that last little update. If you're not already subscribed, you owe it to me to do that. So please click the subscribe button and give me a thumbs up if you don't mind. Thank you very kindly. Thanks for watching.